So in the previous interviews with Ezshwan on Sundays, I have focused on her more current work in mediums of cold wax and encaustic. This is a painting that is really personal, and I wanted to highlight it. It's acrylic, Mom?
It's oil on canvas.
And it's tribute to Kai Winding, who
Yes,
was your husband.
My homage to Kai.
And your partner.
Right.
And all the many things that you've collected in your travels.
Yes, in there, if I may say, there are our favorite wine travels from Peru, from Moscow, a few of his hundreds of albums, his trombone, of course, Japan. There are the Downbeat Awards, the Playboy Awards, his discography, and a little picture of he and I up in the corner.
It's a fantastic and complex composition, and I'm going to pan onto my favorite photograph of my stepdad, Kai.
This was a photo that was taken in Montreux, Switzerland, a couple of years before Kai passed. It was during the Jazz Festival, and we were staying there having an absolutely fabulous time, and he looks so happy. It was taken by an Italian photographer up in someone's penthouse.
So Mom, as you know, I love this painting. I think it's a masterpiece. I also love the story behind it.
It's a special story for me. It's one of my most important learning experiences in art school. I was in my second semester of my first year in art school, and I was a fan of Braque. I loved Braque's work, but I didn't understand much about how he did it and what the depth was. And our assignment was in freshman design to do an abstract painting. And this is what is abstract. And I took many, many hours and days of working on this. And then my instructor poured paint all over it and drove me to distraction. But he said that was one of the only ways to get my attention. I was kind of cocky in those days, thinking I could do it all. Well, I had a lot to learn. In this piece, I learned what negative space was. It's a long story I won't go into today, but it's very important to me. And the next day at the jurying, the dean of the freshman art school saw my work, and he said, "What were you trying to do?" And I explained to him. He said, "You can't do that now. That's senior work." So I learned, as I said, a great deal from this piece.
And was this casein, gouache?
This is casein.
That's hard to work with.
No, it isn't. It's different. It's a water base, which handles much like could be oil paint or acrylic, but till it really sets up, it still can be moved by water. It's really a wonderful, wonderful medium technique. It's quite old, made with a milk-based casein, and it sets up to be permanent after it's completely dry. It's a flat surface. It's very matte in the finished look.
Well, as you know, I adore this piece, and I'm so happy it will stay with me and our family forever.
No, it means a great deal to me too.
What year was it done?
1953, I think.
That's awesome. Now the piece that I paired, quote unquote, is actually a painting of myself. That was when I was much younger, and I believe that was oil on canvas, correct?
Yes, it was. I was in a kind of a dry period at that point. It was when I was living in Arizona, again, many years ago, maybe 30 years ago. And a friend of mine who was another artist and an art teacher, and I said, I was just stuck. He said, "We'll take one subject and paint it in 3 different techniques." And so this is a paint sketch. So it was done very, very quickly. And I still like it because it's fresh. I have a tendency now, I think, to pump up the paintings and take them to another level using more techniques. And this was just pure paint, real fast. And for me, it worked.
Not as detailed as your current work, but there's so much emotion in every stroke. As I said again today, I have the great pleasure of curating my mom's incredible talent and being a part of the experiences that she has captured. This is a beautiful, spontaneous ink drawing of Bill Evans, a musician I highly admire. And Mom, I don't think your pen ever left the page. It is as fluid and organic as bebop itself. Can you tell me a little bit about this piece and when it was created?
Yes, that was during the Nice Jazz Festival. We traveled there every summer where Kai was one of the featured artists. And George Ween was the coordinator of the festival, and he gave me a press pass so I could go almost anywhere, not on stage, but close to the stage. I was sitting on the steps of the stage. As long as I didn't get in front of the musicians in the audience or the television cameras, I could go almost anywhere, backstage and the side, so I was very privileged. And I worked with ink because there was no going back. I wanted it as spontaneous as jazz itself.
Another one of my favorites that I plucked off your wall. This was not in Nice, correct? But
no, this was in The Hague, Netherlands. This was another jazz festival. There were quite a few in the summer, and I was privileged to be able to travel with Guy and always had my sketchbook in hand. Again, ink, drawing very, very fast. I don't think I could do that anymore. It takes some practice.
But you did it then, and you did it beautifully.
Thank you.
And again, one of my favorite pieces, an encaustic and charcoal on paper of the brilliant Billie Holiday. I recently saw a documentary about her, and it enforced my respect for her as a woman, her strength, her talent. Speaking of which, I am so impressed that my mom, Ezshwan, can create such incredible spontaneity and detail in encaustic, especially on paper. I am very surprised this piece is not sold, but selfishly glad it hasn't, because I would love it to be with me forever.